Very good evening to you, Professor. One of the issues that's been raised, which might happen in 2020, is South Africa's loss of investment grade. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, good evening. And I think it's important that we do look into the crystal ball about the South African economy now. And in order to do that and to look at the economic realities we have to deal with, including the issue of whether we be downgraded by the rating agencies Moody's, is, of course, to say that last year was a very grim year for the South African economy, in which the bad news was very much heavier and outweighed the good news for 2019. And so we know that we ended last year, probably when we get the numbers, we've probably grown at 0.3 or 0.4%. And for this year, the forecast, one would suggest, is on present evidence, we're probably not going to grow at more than 1% this year. So I say that because, firstly, that's important if we want to deal with the challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality on the one hand, and on the other hand, if we want to fend off what might eventually become total junk status if we're not seen to be growing rapidly enough. So I think that's the big challenge. We know it's simply not a good enough economic performance for next year. The IMF has said this is the 6th or 7th year in which our growth rate has been below the population growth. So it's going to be a tough year, whether you're in business, in government, or in labor, or as consumers. But I think as we understand the challenges, it's better than how to manage them. And I think it's important that we understand what we need to do.
So fiscal consolidation is an issue that's been said needs to be watched when Finance Minister Tito Mboweni delivers the budget in February 2020. What are we looking for and what signs are we looking for of that consolidation and of that move that South Africa can recover from the challenges that you've spoken about?
Well, in a nutshell, we're saying that this year, South Africa has to break out of a low-growth trap without falling into a debt trap. And so that is very important for the budget strategy. And I think whether we're talking about the budget or about Eskom, which is the more immediate challenge, or the State of the Nation address, which is going to all come up next month, I think the important point is we want to see a greater sense of urgency. There are some issues that need to be urgently addressed. We need clear direction, and we need to know, among other things, that part of that clear direction in the future is we will be getting our public finances under control. And that's a very important message, which, as you said earlier, if we want to fend off a negative decision from the Moody's rating agency, that is one of the messages that's got to come out very clearly from both the State of the Nation address and the budget.
Let's stay with state-owned enterprises. We know that there are concerned two rating agencies in particular. Will that business rescue at SAA and a new CEO at Eskom do anything to reassure and placate ratings agency in particular and markets in general that South Africa is trying to get its house in order?
I think these early in the new year are steps in the right direction. There's no doubt about it that the SAA situation, on the one hand, needed some new formula, some new business process, which will help to resolve the serious problems there. But more importantly, of course, Eskom. Maybe it's not a serious matter if you can't get an aircraft in the air, but it's pretty serious if you can't keep the lights on. So I think those two issues, which are being addressed early in the new year, will be among the tests that will be applied as the months unfold as to whether the rating agencies will take a more negative view of South Africa or not. But the important point we need to say is those are just barometers of whether we're doing the right thing or not. What's important is we need to do these things because they're urgent and they are the right things to do. And therefore, what we need to see early in the new year is we are going to walk the talk more effectively than we've done in the past.
So, Professor, of course, factors external to us influence our economy. So we know that there's going to be the signing of the first phase of a trade deal between China and the US after that very protracted back and forth there. Is that going to affect the South African economy in any significant manner?
I think if we look at the global economy, it does look a little more stabilized. The forecasts from the IMF, the World Bank, and so forth are that they expect now that the growth rates in the world economy will probably be 3 to 3.5%. There are some downside risks, but the fact that there's now a China-US trade agreement on the one hand, and there is a Brexit decision on the other, means that a strong degree of uncertainty has now receded from the world economy. So hopefully, from the point of view of South Africa, we can look forward to a more stable world outlook, and we've got to concentrate on those factors in our domestic economy that are going to make a difference to our forecasts and our welfare over the next year.
I'm sure you've seen how the rand seems to be firming up against the dollar towards the end of the year and in the new year. Is that a call for some optimism or some hope that it's not all doom and gloom for the South African economy going forward?
Well, I think that among the positive factors is firstly that our rate of inflation is now well down in the inflation target range of 3 to 6%, and therefore we should be asking the Reserve Bank when it meets later this month whether there's scope now to begin to reduce interest rates further. The rand, as you've indicated, that the rand has strengthened. That's good news. It means that our petrol prices can come down. And we've had some summer rains, which in some areas of the country are very positive for the performance of the agricultural sector. But the important point, I think, here, for me, certainly, is that as we look into the crystal ball, what's important is that we build on the positive factors, address the weaknesses, and it's in our hands whether we're going to indulge in the luxury of despair or whether we're going to build some better economic prospects. There can be wins this year if we play our cards smartly. So we've got to look for solutions, but above all, not just talk about them, implement them, carry people with us, and make sure that if there's bad news, we're going to minimize it, and that we're going to come out of this year saying we are beginning to break out of our low growth trap, and we are not going to fall into a debt trap. That, to me, is the overarching dilemma and the challenge that South Africa faces in 2020.
Professor Raymond Parsons, who's an economist at the Northwest University School of Business, joining me on the line there. Thanks so much for your time.